I recently sat down with legendary Seattle Seahawk quarterback Dave Krieg. Dave Krieg played in the NFL for 19 seasons, which is a pretty amazing statistic. And he played his last game in 1998. He retired officially in 2000, and he retired as a Seattle Seahawk. In 2004, Dave was inducted into the Ring of Honor for the Seahawks. And this is a pretty phenomenal statistic here. In the decade of the 80s, there were three quarterbacks that threw for at least 20,000 yards and at least 169 touchdown passes. Those three QBs were Dan Marino, Joe Montana, and Dave Krieg. When he retired, he was sitting 13th all time in NFL history in career passing yards, 10th all time in career touchdown passes, and 11th all time in career wins. Now, he has been bumped down that list or those lists in the years that have followed his retirement as NFL offenses have changed. The passing game now is much more prevalent, but Dave Krieg has career numbers that are better than a number of current NFL Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So here is my Man-to-Man Monday sit down with Dave Krieg. Enjoy.
What made you go from California? You just said, I'm going to take whatever job I can get first year.
I was a GA at Humboldt State in Northern California, and this offensive coordinator job came open, and I jumped at it. 30 years old, being OC at Division II, and I was gone. What a culture shock, Nebraska! Holy shit!
It's small town America, man.
Big time.
Some of the nicest people, right?
Yeah, 5,000 people, salt of the earth people. And then we brought a bunch of California JUCO guys out there, which blew everybody's mind, you know. And that's the thing about throwing the ball. We had all these receivers and quarterbacks from California JUCOs lining up against these Iowa and Nebraska DBs. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Running
crazy.
right by them.
Well, I got to say something else, too. There's a friend of mine. He was our basketball coach at Milton. He's about 73 now. Lives north of Green Bay, way up by Marinette. He was a great high school star. Then he went on to coach at Milton College. So when I was there, his name is Dale Race. And, you think, why would I think a basketball coach is instrumental in my life? But at Milton, we had three coaches. Rudy was our football coach. Dale Race was our basketball coach. And Jim Johnson was our baseball coach. And Dale Race now has cancer and stuff. So I've been calling him and talking to him about all that stuff, So small town coaches, I mean, those guys, can you imagine taking a job? You took a job, at least you started in a D2 school, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine your first job? And I think Jim Johnson left somewhere, St. Joseph, Missouri or something. And he said, honey, we're going to go to Milton, Wisconsin. Neither of them knew where it was. We're going to coach baseball. He's never coached before. And Rudy gave him a job as our offensive line coach. He never coached offensive line before, but he was so, such a good teacher that he coached him good. And coaches in my life, that's what I want to say is coaches are so important. The basketball coach, I would go to their games. I'd watch the guys. I wanted to play basketball in college. And there's something about coaches. I said to him, even though he's got cancer now, I said, Coach, I said, when you were coaching, us players would come to practice, but you had to be there. Coaches have to be there. If I didn't have a coach in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, just showing me like something, I knew how to throw a football. But if you don't have coaches in your life, especially as an athlete, you'd never make it. So I always, when I talk to a coach, it's almost like talking to an Army veteran, right? It's like coaches are, especially guys that have done it for 20, 30, 40 years, they need their attaboys once in a while. I guess that's what I'm giving you in a long sort of way.
Yeah, no, crucial.
I mean, and let's face it, back in the old days with Bear Bryant and Bob Devaney
Yeah.
And you go to Woody, you can go to John Robinson.
Yeah.
Those guys, good players didn't just happen to come to them. They found ways to get good players too that we didn't hear about either.
Right.
Because you can't be a good coach, you can't be a great coach unless you have really, really good players.
That's right.
And it's just funny how the big schools would always seem to get them. Now with NIL, that everybody's complaining because it's more parity now, it seems to be.
Yeah.
Although I don't like the fact a freshman in college comes up driving a Lamborghini or something like that, and his lineman friends, they're like, well, dude, you got the Lamborghini and we got nothing. Or you want me to block for you? I can see where that would be a problem in the locker room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
And these kids, I don't even know what to do with money. I'm in my 60s. What does that 18-year-old kid know what to do with, endorsement money, contracts that they might be committed to for years? Anyway, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
I mean, when you were 18 and I was 18, could you imagine what we would have done with a bag full of money? We would have just been nuts, stupid.
I wouldn't have known what to do with it anyway. I wouldn't
Exactly.
have even done stupid stuff. I would have just said, here's a bag of money. I wouldn't know what I did.
Kurt Warner gets highly publicized and he gets a movie made about him and his unlikely climb from 1AA to the NFL. But your story, I think, is more amazing. Going to NAIA Milton College. And I got to say it, tiny Milton College. I know you need that.
Or defunct. That's what they said.
No longer exists. No scholarships. You started out as the 17th quarterback, made it up to starter, free agent in the NFL to starter, to a 19-year career, and career numbers in multiple categories that rank as some of the best in history.
Even crossed my mind that much. I mean, now that I hear it, I go, wow. But, when you talk about Kurt Warner, the Kurt Warner I think of was my teammate.
Exactly.
He was raised by his grandparents in West Virginia, not his mom and dad, his grandparents. They had an outhouse till he was in 8th grade. Then somebody noticed him. He goes to Penn State, and he's behind some people. And then I asked him about this just recently because I said, I can't even imagine what it's like to go to Penn State as a freshman. I said, when I was a freshman at Milton, we only had 50 guys on the team. You got this whole big stadium. He goes, I just took the ball and I ran. And that's the story. And both of his boys, Christian and Austin, have autism. They're in their 30s now. Can you imagine being a parent? You got to watch these kids all the time, and he has help and all that stuff, but he could use some more help, that's for sure. But the other Kurt Warner story, I do kid him once in a while. I've seen him. I said, well, let's see, you were a bag boy at a grocery store. I said, when I was growing up, I shoveled manure, I baled hay, peed on an electric fence like any other farm kid would. Then I moved up a little bit, and I was cleaning the toilets out at the mobile gas station and changing tires and pumping gas. Then I moved up to Roto-Rooter, number 1 in the number 2 business. And then I got to work at the paper mill. And until July after my senior year at DC Everest, my dad says, are you going to work at the mill, or are you thinking of going to college? So then I called Rudy and I went down there for a visit, and he said, well, we got one sophomore coming back, and then everybody else, the tight ends, the linebackers, all these guys wanted to play quarterback. So that's how I got there. But I got to tell you, the thing about football for me, I don't think about that. I just think about the teammates I had. Ray Butler, Paul Scanzi, right? Yep. Steve August, Edwin Bailey, Reggie McKenzie. I would have never met these guys had it not been for that. And I think what happens on podcasts too is they forget to talk about the linemen, the offensive and defensive linemen. Like a guy like Joe Nash, a free agent who played in the NFL for 12, 13 years, made a Pro Bowl from Boston College. He wasn't drafted either. So
right.
I look at the records, and that's mostly it's like all about me, whereas there wouldn't be a me if we didn't do all that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Somebody had to make these catches and get hit and all that. So when I think about how lucky I was, and you've been at small colleges, like there's no chance in heck that hardly any of these kids are going to make it. And then this one kid from the smallest college ever existed makes it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. What was the big game for Milton?
Well, there was 2. Lakeland would be a rivalry. And then Eureka, that's where Ronald Reagan went to college. It's in Illinois.
Right.
It's in Northeast Illinois. Eureka and Northeastern Illinois. They had a good linebacker there. I wish I knew his name. He was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and that was a big game for us to go down and play them. We had to drive on the bus 5-6 hours to get to Illinois. I never flew on a plane in college until I tried out for the Seahawks. I flew out there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm up in the air.
Right.
Then you talk about pampered. I got there. We're staying at this Holiday Inn Express, right? So I go into this hotel. I'm like, there's a roommate. I can't remember who my roommate. It might have been Leroy King from Texas. He was a running back. He had 2 gold teeth that said LK. What a great dude. And he was my roommate. And I said, I can order food from the phone, right?
Right.
And he goes, yeah. So I said, and all that, we go out for breakfast or lunch, and guys are all complaining. I can't believe they put us in a Holiday Inn. You know, they're used to staying at nicer places from USC. So culture shock, big
right.
culture shock.
Okay. What was your favorite stadium to play in?
Ooh. Jack Murphy, because of the grass and the conditions always seemed perfect down in San Diego. That was just unbelievable field. The rest of them, I just love playing in all of them. I can't. I mean, Lambeau Field would be the best one, obviously, because, I mean, can you imagine? Remember I was showing you that thing about Vince Lombardi?
Right. Yeah.
So the way I got into football, we were watching black and white TV, and my dad, like any other, come on, Stark, oh, dang it, yelling at Bart Starr on the TV, like that's going to help. But that's what he did. But I was watching it going, how did he know he's going to be there, you know? So I learned about anticipation and throwing to Boyd Dollar and Max McGee and Paul Hornung.
Yep.
So that's how I got indoctrinated into football, was just watching it on TV.
Yeah. I grew up with the Packers too. So I that other podcast that you did that I watched you on, you were talking about leaping over your couch in the living room.
Oh, yeah. You know what you might have saw me on was the guy from ESPN, John Anderson.
No, it was some young kid out in your backyard.
Yeah. But we used to do that. Like, I'm sitting on this couch, and I'd make my brothers get down on their knees and then jump over them like it's 4th and 1. We used to do that. Then we played tackle football in the hallway, and there was only like the size of a telephone booth. So there was a lot of hitting going on and trying to score because we're very competitive. I mean, we did so much stuff, but I used to watch that football. Then I'd get the neighbor kids. If one of my neighbors had 3 or 4 brothers, that's even better because that's less kids you have to get. You had to get about 10 so you could have 5-on-5. So I had to be marketing at a young age. Hey, can Johnny come over? Can Ron, Paul, and Steve come over? And then can Bruce come over? And can Kevin and Brian and Jeff come over? Pretty soon you got 10 guys. I would take the little guys. And then I would make believe I was Bart Starr and the other team. I didn't care what they did. And I'm throwing passes. And I was visualizing playing quarterback. I knew that's what I wanted to do when I was like 5, 6, 7. I didn't really tell people. Yeah. I mean, I went to high school. I wasn't even all conference, you know. And so, but that's where I grew for loving football, and I still love football to this day.
My dad took me to Kezar Stadium in '67 to watch Green Bay and San Francisco.
John Brody.
Wow. Unbelievable. Kezar Stadium, and then he took me down to Haight Ashbury just to show me. Freaked me out.
Good for you. Good for you. There was a lot of good music came out of there.
Yeah.
Everything came out of there.
Jeez. Did you ever meet Bart Starr?
Coach, nice place to visit.
Yeah.
But you want to live there.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. Kezar Stadium during the game, like 1,000 seagulls circling around, shitting all over everything. It was unbelievable. We
played a Candlestick right next to it. I mean, that was kind of a windy place. I don't know how Joe did that. Joe and I were roommates.
Yeah.
And I always said to him, I said, well, it would be hard to really screw up if you got Jerry Rice and Roger Craig and John Taylor and Brent Jones and Ronnie Lott and all them guys, you know.
Well, that's about it, Dave. This has been great. And
I'm glad we got this all figured out. This is well done.
Yeah,
This
well
is
done.
This is a good show. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna sign off. We'll see if you agree with this sign off. But this is QB Unfiltered, and remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I agree.
All right.